If you think about what makes someone attractive, or even the vibe, so on and so forth, it does come from that first question where it's like, let go of that fear of what people will think of you. You know, you're out by yourself, especially you and that little voice inside, immediately it's gonna start saying like, what's your name?
My name is Brixton.
Brixton?
Yes.
Brixton or Brig?
Like the city of London. Brixton.
I've not been to London recently. All right, can I call you Brigsby? I know it's totally off Brixton, but I kind of like Brigsby. You look like a Brigsby. So, you're out by yourself, right? Brigsby out. Brigsby's day out by himself. And there's that little voice. For real, you're by yourself, you don't have your friends to distract you, that little voice gonna kick in. It's like, hey, B, see those people over there? They're staring at you right now. They're judging you. You're like, oh, fuck. You're like, hey, B, you know when you were like, should I wear this attire today? Do I look a little weird? Those people over there, they think you are fucking weird. Like literally your worst nightmare. That's what that voice does. Even when you try to chill, it's like, hey, remember yesterday when you ate a pizza, you fat fuck, and you're like all this shit, you know? So it's hell, and we're left with that little voice, and it just compounds, you know? We're so concerned, like, people are staring at me. They probably don't even notice you, okay? If it's further than their arms, you don't exist. And if you're in this range, you're blurry. Write that down. I'm not even kidding. If you're walking down the street, first of all, most people are in their phones, but even if they're not, how far ahead of you are you actually looking? This far. We literally live in a bubble or in the virtual world. You know, most people see their friends more often online than in person. You know, and even if you're walking down the street, it's like, are you zoning in on strangers? No? Like, who does that? Right? Do you ever see someone like actually sit down, like say you're in the street and just like really zoning in on the details of people walking by? Never. Even your closest friend. Do they zone in on you? They're like, hey, B, let me just analyze your face real fast. No. You're just blurry. Even if you're this close, you're blurry. Do they notice all the little details? Like, is that a wrinkle on your shirt? Oh, that wrinkle wasn't there yesterday. Oh, you know what? You look a little more tired, Oh, is that little pimple thing I see there? Oh, I didn't notice that before. No one does that. Do you do that? No. You know, we don't notice shit. To the point where even couples, if you're in a couple, you'll relate, you don't even notice when your partner gets a fucking haircut. Right? Like they'll even tell you, it's like, hey, I'm going out to get a haircut. You're like, cool. And you see them right after, you're like, hey, so anyway, remember this thing? You're like, do you not notice anything different? You're like, what are you talking about? Oh, boom, haircut. You won't even notice it. You know who didn't notice shit with me? When I shaved my beard off. Do you guys ever see that? I decided last year to grow this hobo beard, and it looked really bad. And I was in Berlin, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck this beard, it's coming off. And I shaved it off, and for me, because I'm so close to the beard, I look like a fucking freak. Like when you shave off a beard, you're like, this is what I look like, put it back on. You just want it back, it's horrible. And I went out that night and I was like, oh man, all my friends they're gonna notice it, they're gonna mock my ugly ass face without the beard, so on and so forth. And I saw them, and one noticed, the other two didn't even notice, right? 3 people who were like on tour with me, spending every day with me with this fucking ugly ass beard, shave it. One's like, oh, nice. That's all he said. The other 2 were like, so anyway, where are we going tonight? And I'm like, do you not notice anything? They're like, what? Oh, the beard. Oh yeah. So anyway, it's like, oh, no one notices. And then beyond that, remind yourself too, like this is really the difference between people who win or lose. It's the people who are like in those instances where it's like, what are people gonna think? They still take action. Because it's not just you. Like this is everyone. It doesn't matter what environment you're in, you're not gonna wanna say embarrassing things, right? Especially in a place where you're kind of confined with people. Like say you're in a Starbucks, like and there's a long line, and it's like really quiet, and you're right in there, that'll probably be very scary for you, right? What if during that time, it's like, you know what? Start singing. Like, and it's not just you, it's everyone. However, the people who do it, who like bite it, they're like, you know what, fuck it. I kind of feel it, but I don't give a fuck, and they do it, they get ahead because everyone else is too scared. So it's in those moments where it's like you're either a winner or a loser. How do you become interesting? What determines, say, if you're talking to someone, okay, here's the situation. You meet someone you don't know. You meet. What determines if what you're going to say is going to be interesting or not?
Self-amusement is the order myself. I become interesting to another person.
Yes. Be interested in what you're saying. So this is key. Whether you're meeting someone new or you're already in a conversation, it's just really boring, start owning what you're saying. And this means talk about shit that you like. If you're someone who's, for example, into mathematics, talk about that. That would actually be the most interesting thing you can say. If you're someone who's just nerding out at home, like 2 + 2 = 4, fuck yeah. And you're just like, that's my vision. Like, that's what nerding out is to me. Like literally just writing it out = 4 and like pat on the back. If that's you, talk about that. That should be the first thing that you say. It's like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Julien. Hey, did you know 2 + 2 = fucking 4? Even if they know, they're going to get drawn in. Even if they know, it's like one person's surprised. Like, oh, I did not know. Even if they know, they're still going to get sucked in because it's what you're into. Okay? Now, beyond that, okay, start nerding out, start owning it. Also, start living a more interesting life. You got to break the fucking routine. Right now, if you think your life is boring or you're like, you know what, there's nothing interesting about me or what I do, switch it up. Why are you not living a more interesting life? Right? That should be the question. It shouldn't be like, well, can I learn about more topics or things to say? No, it's like, live a more interesting life. And immediately when you hear this, you're probably thinking, oh, that's expensive. I'm too poor to live an interesting life. Right? That's actually the thought. I'm too poor to live an interesting life. What? No. In reality, and this is big, by the way, the less money you have, the more interesting the life, in a way. The crazier the life, in a way. Okay, I always take it back to if you're traveling and say you go to Europe. You're like, you know what, I'm going to go to Europe for 2 weeks, go on an adventure. And say there's two people. There's one who has a lot of money and one who doesn't. Which one would have the more adventurous journey in Europe? The person who's broke as shit, takes the plane where there's like 2 layovers, sitting in the back and just like, going on the fucking bus at the airport trying to find where they're going to stay, staying at a shitty ass hostel with like 8 other people. Or the other person who's like, you know what, first class. Fuck, not just first class, I want like the first row, like I want the whole first class just for me. I arrive there, I want a fucking limo driver and I want to stay up at the penthouse of this place. Okay, that's cool. It's very comforting, it's very convenient, but which one makes for the better story? Do you really have to think? Is it like, oh, those beds were very cushy at that nice hotel? No! It's the person who's like, oh man, and I got in this place and it was crazy and disgusting in the hostel, and oh my god, this one person in the hostel shat the bed and all this shit. Like, way more interesting story. Right? Way more interesting and a lot cheaper. Now, let's go even cheaper than that. How can you do it for free? Literally break the routine. If you look at your weekly routine, we all think our life it changes all the time. It's not true. It's like it's very predictable. What can you do that will just break that?
Come here. Move.
Come here is one. But you know what else? Say on the weekend, leave your phone at home. I was like, oh, leave your phone at home. Walk out the front door. Make a right. And keep walking straight for 40 minutes. And see where you end up. And guess what? Now you're on a little adventure. You don't got your phone. You don't have GPS anymore. You're in this new ass place. I guess you could walk 40 minutes back, but now you're like, well, here I am. That is an adventure. And guess what? Just that, you don't think that's interesting to talk about? It's like, hey, nice to meet you. You know what I did yesterday? Walked 30 minutes to the right. They're like, what? And there's your story. You're like, yeah, I was kind of a boring fuck and I went to this weird seminar and this guy said, just turn right and walk straight and here I am. Just that will make it way more interesting. A lot of activities, you can do them for extremely cheap. Go out and do crazy shit. You just got to put yourself in those situations where stuff can happen. You got to get out of that comfort, first class padded routine that is life. Switch it up. For real. Imagine, too, when you do this, by the way, that you're coaching you. Because that's the key. Because you know all your excuses. Even hearing this, you're like, that's a great idea, but I'm never going to do it. Right? And say you need to. It's like, you know what? I'm never going to do this, but I know it would help me. Coach yourself. You know your own psychology. Like, say you're your own coach and you told yourself, tomorrow walk for 40 minutes to the right. What excuses are you going to come up with? And say you had to coach you. How can you make it so that you do it? That's the frame of mind I take, by the way. I know all my excuses and I know all my comebacks, and it's the perfect challenge to try to, trick myself into taking right action, because I know how my mind works. You should do the same. If you had to coach you and create a situation where it was impossible for you to not do it, what would you do or say to yourself so that you did it? And then do that. Okay? And it's funny too, little side tangent here, how we tend to think that so much of growth is uncomfortable. Like going out and say dealing with different social pressure, or say there's something you're procrastinating with now, you're like, ugh, it's just this drag to do. It really isn't if you take that frame of mind of coaching yourself. How can you do it so you just don't have a choice? And as soon as you don't have a choice, now it's gone. The back and forth, what's weighing you down is when there's an option. You want to know how to not have a choice? Right now, whatever it is you're procrastinating on, give $1,000 to your friend and tell your friend, if I don't do this, you keep the money. You're going to do whatever it is you're fucking procrastinating on, assuming 1,000 is a considerable sum for you. If not, give them 10,000, 20,000. Now with that, the hardest part? It's a second. It's, here, man. That's it. That's the hardest part, is giving your friend the cash. After that, you don't have a choice. So there's no longer, should I, shouldn't I, I'm going to fucking do it or I lose the money. So operate like that. You got to be smart. If it's this big drag, start thinking proactively. How can I coach myself? How can I create all these different situations so that I don't have a choice? And then you just do those split seconds of uncomfort where you give your buddy the money, and now you just do it. And you just keep doing that, and it becomes very easy. Really become aware of the dynamic of who's chasing who. Okay? And this is key. You can even go one day throughout your day and just start scanning different interactions. You will actually be that weirdo looking in detail. And ask yourself, who cares more about this interaction? For who is it a bigger deal? Right? Who has more value? Who's reacting more to the other person? And it's a very subtle dynamic, but you need to start training yourself to recognize this. Not so you become paranoid, just so you have a basic understanding of it instead of just, being blind to it. So, who has more value? Who cares more? What are some of the tells? Do you know?
Who's not reactive?
Okay, what are the tells of reactivity?
Nervousness.
Trying for a pour, that's a good one. So, in the vocal tonality, you will sense the voice kind of go up at the end, like, hey, what? Really? Oh, really? Whoa. You'll see that. A little bit of jitteriness. A little too fast, faster pace. So what do? I do this. A little too excited, heightened emotional responses, so on and so forth. So start noticing that, and then there are certain things you can do to kind of play with that dynamic. If you want to be interesting and really suck someone into what you're saying, you got to be more ADD. We're all extremely logical. We're like, well, to make it interesting, I'm going to talk about the most interesting topic in extreme depth, and only that one topic. It's too boring. You got to be ADD. You got to switch a lot of topics and leave a lot of those topics unended, a lot of those stories unended. You know who did this? The Avengers movie. Anyone see that Infinity War movie? Did you like it? I liked it. You want to know why it was so captivating? Because they did this. As soon as it started getting a little too boring or predictable, like say there's two characters, like Iron Man and some other fucking, dude, and they're talking, you're like, oh, it's Iron Man, the fucking dude. After a while, you're gonna get a little bored because, okay, well, it's Iron Man, I'm kind of used to it now. What would they do? Switch to another storyline with two other characters. So there's newness and another story. You're like, oh, now there's this fucking Captain America. Oh, shit. Okay, I kind of got used to Captain America. I wonder what happened. Iron Man again. Boom. And they would just alternate between all these different storylines and all these different characters and these small little, you could say, social media Instagram stories of 1 minute. That was the whole movie. It's 1 minute just shifting between all these characters and different stories that all go together. And guess what? Because it's so wide, because there's all these stories going on, because you're always thinking, what happened to them, what happened to them, what happened to them? Captivating. That's literally the formula. You want to know what's going to happen in Endgame? The same thing. Remember this moment. You're going to be watching that. This might ruin the movie for you. You're like, fuck Endgame. They're tricking me with the little open loops. For real, just look at it. You're going to see every minute, shift, 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 shift. New characters, new story, new scenes, especially nowadays because we're so bored and so conditioned to this fast-paced information with social media. So do that in conversations. Don't just have this, I start my sentence, I end my sentence. I start my story, I end my story. Be more ADD, be more all over the place. If something pops in, oh, and it makes me think of this, and it makes me think of this, and this, and this, and this, reels people in, okay? You can also add a magical little word here to kind of spice it up too, which is never mind. And this kind of goes into playing on that investment, or you could say who's chasing who. There's always one person qualifying themselves more. Like if I ask you, what's your name, by the way?
Akshay.
Now immediately, what? That's it. That's all you do. Where are you from, by the way?
Irvine.
That's why. Okay. Anyway, what about, now you mean, it's like, what does that mean? Irvine, what? What? How does that play into it? By the way, are you in your 20s?
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. And what's your favorite movie?
Avengers.
Yeah. Okay, now, funny enough, if I meet someone new and I'm just fucking around, that's what most of the first, say, 5 to 10 minutes of an interaction's like. It's just these questions and me just doing, never mind, makes me think of, never mind. Literally, it's me asking questions. Now, we think this is bad. Like, what do you mean? How can you reel someone in asking questions? By doing what I just did. It's not in the question per se, it's in the vibe behind it. So the way most people ask a question is it's very needy. It's like, hey, so do you like Avengers? Huh? Like trying to get something, and that's what's repulsive. It's not the question per se, it's the energy they get off it. As opposed to, by the way, do you like Avengers? That's an offering of value. Do you like Avengers? Even though I'm asking a question. Now immediately it's like, well, especially if there's something behind it. Like, by the way, do you like Avengers? You're like, well, yes, I do. Oh. And what does that mean? And so you're like, tell me the meaning behind that. And then you just stack it. It's like, so, okay, so Avengers, what's your favorite TV show?
Mine.
No. You.
Friends.
Friends? Why?
Because I love Joey.
Favorite band?
I don't have a favorite.
Okay. That's another one too, is like, even interrupt before the end of the sentence or the end of the word. In a way, you're setting the rhythm where it's like now you're leading and immediately you're like chasing, chasing, chasing. This is not something you want to consciously do all the time, but at first to just kind of get a feel for this dynamic, it's so key. Because I'm like, oh, interesting. Joey, huh? Are your parents divorced?
Yeah.
That's why. Julien, nice to meet you. Boom, done. Just like that. And you just play on it. So again, interesting. I'm interested in what I'm saying. I'm offering value, good vibe. I can go into stories, and if I will go stories, I'll tend to be a little bit more ADD, but just adding those little things makes someone extremely captivated in what you're saying. Okay, and you can apply this in all circumstances, I mean, all environments, whether it's meeting someone new, whether it's at work, whatever it is, add a few of those, immediately people will get drawn in.